Imagine for a moment that you've just woken up in a new dimension, another world, a completely different reality. Everything may look strangely familiar, but there's one really big difference. In this reality, your past does not exist. Everything begins from scratch. You get to create from all of the images in your mind that you deem lovely, abundant, and wonderful. But everything else has somehow disappeared. And I want you to experience what that would actually feel like. Because once you experience reality without a past, you may find it surprisingly difficult to think about your future the same way again. So just for a moment, close your eyes and listen. Did you feel that? How something within you and all around you just changed? And perhaps you haven't realized what happened just yet, but somewhere between one thought and the next, your awareness shifted. You've crossed over into another dimension. And you're in that dimension now. You don't need to understand how you got here, but somehow, in this moment, your consciousness made a shift. Because it can shift in any moment. And as you begin to experience this new reality, you may notice that something else feels strangely different. Because in this dimension, you can only experience life from the vantage point of zero previous limitations. Anything undesirable that you remember happening in that other world has been wiped away. And in its place are only thoughts and memories of lovely things. Things working out for you. Things happening in your favor. All good things flowing to you easily. You see, there's something very unusual about this dimension that you will soon discover. It will not allow an undesirable memory from your old reality to remain intact. If one attempts to resurface, the dimension itself immediately begins altering it, rearranging it, revising it, until the memory becomes perfectly favorable to you. Because those old thoughts cannot exist here. They belong in another reality. In this dimension, this reality that you've just entered automatically replaces them with new thoughts, and new assumptions, and new expectations, the kind that create only lovely outcomes. So here, if a thought happens to appear in your mind that says, "I was never able to have that," you may find that something inside you immediately responds with, "There's no such thing as that here." Or perhaps if you start to hear, "Last time I tried this, it didn't work," you'll remember that there is no last time here, only the present moment and creative space. Or if you start to hear in your mind, "I've never been able to have that before," you'll suddenly realize that it's just a fading thought from the other reality, completely dissolving, because that history does not exist here. Because here, there is no before. Everything is new. And perhaps you'll even start to notice something you weren't expecting at all. The longer you remain here, the more natural this reality and way of thinking begins to feel. And somehow, very effortlessly, the reality you came from will start to feel like the imaginary one. You don't have to make this happen. In fact, the less you try, the easier it will become to notice that something inside you has already begun changing on its own. And there's something else you need to understand about the world you've just entered. You are considered absolute royalty here. Supreme. Divine. And because of that, the external physical universe in this dimension has no independent motive, choice, or agenda of its own. It's under absolute necessity and authority to manifest this new arrangement of your mind in accordance with this dimension, where everything is in your favor. And because you've entered this reality with a clean slate, a blank canvas, every single possibility is available to you. This universe has no ability to act out its own intentions against you. It can only shift, rearrange, and reorganize itself to match what you create new within your mind. And here, in this new dimension that you've shifted to, you can only create lovely and amazing things. You may already be noticing how different this feels, because you've never been here before. In your old reality, memories quietly became predictions. They were what happened in your mind before it happened in your reality. But here, there is no before. So there's nothing behind you determining what comes next. However, you can adopt new memories from this dimension, ones that work for you in all positive ways. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, simply know that there's no work or effort that you must apply in this reality, other than allowing yourself to think of the wonderful things you prefer. In fact, you may begin to find it surprisingly difficult to do otherwise while you're here, because as you'll discover, this dimension has been designed to keep your mind clear, open, and naturally oriented toward everything that is lovely for you. You have the absolute privilege of accepting what you like within your mind and then simply watching the physical world here rearrange itself to give it to you. You think it, and it comes into existence. And even if you deliberately attempt to retrieve one of those old thoughts from that other world, something unusual will happen. You'll most likely discover that it doesn't feel quite as believable anymore. It will probably feel distant or foreign, almost as though it belonged to somebody else or somewhere else, in a reality you can remember having visited, but can no longer quite remember how to return to. And perhaps that's when you begin to realize most that you've never been here before. This is all completely new. And you cannot even think the way you used to think while you're here. In fact, go ahead. Try. Try to think of yourself in the old way. Reach back for something you once believed was a limitation. Something you once thought you couldn't have, or couldn't change, or couldn't become. Just for a simple moment, try to find that. And notice how the moment that you begin reaching for it, it's gone. It disappears. It gets completely wiped away. Almost as though this dimension refuses to let you bring it here. So try again. Reach for something that once seemed impossible for you. Something the other you from that other reality would have immediately found a reason to doubt. And notice what happens when you attempt to bring that reason here, in this dimension. It cannot fully hold its shape here anymore. It no longer has the weight it once had. Can you sense that? How those old thoughts and doubts just begin to dissolve. How the memory attached to them becomes less important. And how whatever evidence once supported it has nowhere to exist in this dimension. In fact, it may even seem almost laughable to you at this point, because you're trying to retrieve evidence from a reality that you're no longer in. It's not true here. And this dimension won't allow that. It has no record of perceived failure. No record of disappointments, or of things that don't or can't work. No record of what you couldn't have. It only knows that what you choose now is what it's to create for you. So perhaps instead, allow one thought to enter your mind about something you would absolutely love to experience. Don't think about how it could happen, or try to search any further for memories of evidence that it's possible. In fact, throw away all logic, because you are in charge of this reality. And you don't have a past here that dictates how that goes. So just see that in your mind now. And the moment that image or those sensations begin to appear for you, this reality takes your command to create it. You've given it something it can use. A new instruction. A new arrangement of experience. A new possibility ready to form around you. And now you may be starting to understand. To understand something very unusual about being in this dimension. This reality has no interest in who you used to be in that other world. It only knows who you are being now. And while you've been listening to my voice, you may not have noticed exactly when it happened, but some of the things you believed about yourself when you first closed your eyes may already feel slightly different now. Perhaps there's even a moment when you attempt to remember why something once seemed impossible. And instead, you find yourself wondering why you ever believed that in the first place. And there's something else about this dimension that no one told you before you arrived here. Something you may only discover after you've been here for a little while longer. Your mind begins forming new memories. Except these memories are unusual, because some of them haven't happened yet. At least they haven't happened in the world you remember coming from. And perhaps one is beginning to find you now. Just relax further and let it find you. It's a memory of something wonderful, something you're ready to experience. It already happened in this dimension. And when it arrives, all you have to do is remember it. Remember what it was like when you realized it happened. How wonderful you felt. How amazing it was. Perhaps you remember where you were, what you saw, what you felt in that first moment when you knew, this is mine now. And don't worry if you can't see every detail, because you're not creating this memory. You're simply receiving it. So just let it come to you in whatever way it chooses, as an image, a feeling, a knowing, or possibly just the strange sense that somehow you've been here before. And as this new memory begins settling into your mind, you might notice that it brings other memories with it. Because that's another unusual thing that happens here. One memory begins connecting to another. Perhaps you remember telling someone what happened when you realized it was yours. You remember the expression on their face, or the sound of your own voice as you told them, and how good it felt to finally be able to say, "It happened." And then maybe another memory arrives. A completely ordinary moment. Sometime after you received this thing that you once wanted. Maybe you're waking up one morning, walking through your home, looking at your phone, getting ready for the day, and suddenly you realize the thing you once wanted is simply just part of your life now. It's normal here. Familiar. Expected. And something about that familiarity begins changing you. Because the more memories this dimension gives you, the more difficult it becomes to remember what it was like before. Before it was yours. And before things worked this way. Before you expected life to respond to you in this perfect manner. That version of reality begins moving farther and farther away, while this one becomes your new home. And now, think about tomorrow, just for a moment. And notice what your mind expects to happen next. something may be different because you're no longer creating tomorrow from the memories that you arrived here with. Now you're creating it from the memories that this dimension just gave you. And it's possible that your mind is already beginning to assume that certain things will just work out for you. Maybe something you once questioned now feels strangely inevitable. Something you once hoped for in that other dimension now feels expected in this one. And something you once thought belonged somewhere in your future has moved into your memory as an already established fact. And your mind knows what to do with memories. It uses them to decide what's normal, what's likely, what's available to you, and what happens next. So you don't have to force yourself to believe anything here, or convince yourself, or even try to feel differently. Because in this dimension, things are much easier. This reality gives your mind a new set of images to create from. And it's possible that you can already sense what happens when your thoughts change in this way. The things that feel natural to you change, and the possibilities you automatically accept for yourself change. And without having to monitor every thought, you begin thinking in a very creative way. The way you were always intended to think. Because as far as your mind is concerned, you've already been there. You've seen it. You've felt it. You've lived beyond the moment when it happened. And now you know what it's like to be the person for whom this is already normal. And here's what's most strange. You don't have to consciously remember everything you've experienced here, because whatever part of you knows how to continue this has already remembered it for you. And that's why you're here today. From this point forward, you may begin noticing little moments when this new way of thinking simply appears on its own. A different expectation, a more favorable assumption, a thought that feels strangely natural, as though you've been thinking it for a very long time. And any time you choose, you can return here to create in the same way, in this new dimension that you've entered today, and become even more familiar with this reality and the way in which it fully supports you. Except the next time you come here, you might discover something interesting. It feels less like you're entering another dimension, and more like you're simply home. And in just a moment, you can open your eyes. And in doing so, it does not mean you're returning to the reality you were in when you closed them, because you didn't come here with your eyes. You came here with your consciousness. And wherever your consciousness is, is your true reality. So when you're ready, take a deep breath in, wiggle your fingers and toes, and open your eyes as this new you in this new dimension. And take a look around. Everything may appear familiar, just as it did when we began. But you know something now that you didn't know then. This is not the same reality, and you're not experiencing it from the same mind. And before you leave this experience, I want you to do one simple thing. Go to the comments and write, "I'm in my new dimension," as a declaration of where you've traveled today. And in doing so, it will be a final confirmation to your mind that you shifted dimensions today.